here with Kris, our CSM in the EMEA and APAC regions, and today we're going to be talking about reality capture. Now, Kris, can I ask you, what is reality capture data? What does that mean and why does it matter?
Yeah, for me, it's essentially a combination of technologies that are used to digitize our as-built world. So things like 3D scanning, like photogrammetry, LiDAR, drones, I would classify those as reality capture technologies. So it isn't one set technology type, but they're all doing the same thing. They're essentially capturing real environments and turning it into a digital version or representation of that.
Right. So it's a conglomeration and it all aids in that visual aspect again of these really maybe complex environments and maybe just construction zones, right? And I know in our industry, Cintoo talks a lot about the AEC industry and Industry 4.0, and those are sort of similar but also different, right? We're talking about different types of industries here. And if you were to say, what are the challenges that these types of professionals, whether they're in AEC or more Industry 4.0 environments, what are they facing today in their own workflows?
Yeah, so there has always been a bit of an issue with point cloud data, as we call it. Obviously, reality capture, generally the output from it is what we refer to as a point cloud, essentially a 3D environment that is made up of hundreds of millions of little points. Now, the problem with that generally, and the main problem that we've had, is that point cloud data can be absolutely massive. Gigabytes and gigabytes of data. So it makes it challenging for people to not only store that amount of data, but also to share and collaborate with it. They lead to issues with data management, accessibility, etc. So that is a fundamental one, and I think the way that Cintoo approach that is that we actually convert the point cloud to a mesh format, and that mesh format can be 15 to 20 times smaller than what the point cloud is, which is fantastic. It means that we can share more data. It means that we can jump in and access that data a little bit more freely. I think one of the other ones that hits home is about collaboration limitations a little bit. I'll not name any exact brands or anything, but generally, if you look at the world of mobile phones, you generally have people who are Apple people or they're Android people, and once you decide which one you are, you're in that bubble and you're a supporter of that brand and you use their products, etc., etc. I think reality capture in the past has been a similar ilk, that people have chosen the product, the hardware that is right for them, the software that comes along with it. And often that means that it's difficult to get the data from one to another or move it into certain locations. So actually having something like Cintoo, which is essentially an agnostic platform, we're designed to be interoperable. We're designed for data from any of the brands that are out there capturing any of the technologies to actually come and bring that data and sit it all inside one environment inside Cintoo.
Right.
So yeah, it's about collaborating and working better. I think it's always one of these things that we strive towards, but we know the world of business, we know the world today that people like to keep you as part of it, and sometimes those collaboration efforts can be a bit more difficult.
Yeah, and that's true. And I think I hear a lot of really interesting points in terms of point clouds, I guess you could say, but it's that they're huge, they're very hard to share and actually store, because like you said, it's massive amounts of data just in general. And then professionals are wondering, how do we use this? How do we actually use the point cloud data? What does that even look like for them to work through that? And also then, like you mentioned, collaborate with others, because when we talk about these really complex environments, whether you're working through as-builds or you're putting in new equipment, anything like that, there's so many stakeholders to communicate to. And Kris, so we mentioned the agnostic approach that Cintoo kind of takes with in terms of being able just to get any point cloud data from any hardware application, any other software application. We talked about that, and we talked about the ability to share it to others. But is there anything else that Cintoo is really good at when it comes to kind of processing that reality capture data and the different types of tools or processes that customers are really using when they go into the Cintoo platform?
I think so, and I take this one really back to communication. It's like it's like speaking different languages across the globe. You know, things can get lost in translation. And I think one of the useful things that Cintoo do by converting the point cloud to a mesh is there are many professionals out there who have worked with point clouds for years and years. And they know how to adapt, and despite it being, you know, an environment made up of lots of points, they are savvy enough to know that, you know, there's a piece of equipment sitting there, despite the fact you can kind of see through it. So as Cintoo are obviously converting those points to a solid surface, to a mesh, it means that, you know, we are seeing the surface. We are removing any of that misinterpretation or that mistranslation. And I think that's vital for people, stakeholders on projects, because you might not be an expert in point clouds or how we've captured it, etc. But you need to understand the environment. You need to understand what is happening there and be able to understand it as clear as day. And I think that's one thing that the mesh technology, the point cloud to mesh technology, and backwards can do. It really does remove any of that miscommunication.
Right. And you can go between, right? So you said you can turn on that mesh, work through it in maybe a little bit, and then go back to the just real view of it, right? And so that's kind of all encompassing. And I think another thing that we think about when we talk about reality capture data is, you know, the rate of technology and the rate of our own experiences in these workflows changes so much, and it will change, you know, this coming year, certainly. But what do you foresee in that adoption of reality capture data? What's going on for those professionals that are really looking to integrate it more, or looking towards, you know, what's going to happen in the future?
Yeah, that's a good one, and it's a very interesting time. I mean, if you kind of go back maybe 15 years or so and you think about reality capture, you're typically thinking about a terrestrial laser scanner on a tripod, a very accurate but very expensive piece of kit. But now the reality capture landscape has really opened up. It's really wide. We've got a lot of different options and choices to look at now. So it's not only terrestrial laser scanners. Mobile scanning is taking off in a big way, and there are a number of different items. Drones and photogrammetry is came there. And I mean, even now, you know, we're carrying scanners around in our pockets. We've got our mobile phones, so you know, the ability to actually capture on the go and anywhere we need is becoming a simpler process, which is fantastic to us. So yeah, I see that trend to continue. I think there are some technologies out there at the moment that are doing the rounds on socials and looking very interesting. One of them being splatting, which is essentially taking
I'm not sure what that is.
It's a complex one, but essentially from images it can create a 3D environment, and it is very interesting about how we integrate those elements in. So yeah, I see it being a promising future, and the number of technologies continuing to grow. The simplicity of which, or the accessibility of which, is becoming easier. You don't have to be the severe anymore to use these technologies. You can put on your 360 pano cam on your helmet and walk around the site and capture that data, that information that's going to be useful. We're putting it in the hands of everybody nowadays because it is becoming more and more accessible and more relied on in terms of project workflows.
Yeah, so the increased integration, and what I'm also hearing is just that utilization, not only for experts, but non-experts, you know, and I think Cintoo allows any non-expert, doesn't matter where they're coming from, to really work through all of that data and kind of have that seamless experience as well.
It is. That's why we try and keep our UI and our interface simple, because, you know, if we try to overcomplicate things, as I said, we're going to misinterpret, we're going to miscommunicate. So it needs to be something simple like Cintoo, where you can get your hands on your project data from any data source anytime you need it. And I think that is a really powerful message for what Cintoo is bringing to the industry.
Any data source, anytime you need it. That's awesome. Thank you, Kris, for your time today. I so appreciate it.
Thanks, Maddie. Cheers.